Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is nutrition, and the title is, Do you want to be right or do you want results? Now, this is actually a very, very, very important question that people don't always recognize that they need to ask themselves. So I have a master's in nutrition, and I've helped people with nutrition advice since I've been 18 years old. So that was 17 years of nutrition advice. And overwhelmingly, unfortunately, a common theme that comes up is when people want to tell me what they're doing with their nutrition. They want to tell me where it almost feels like their end outcome would be for me to tell them, yes, everything you're doing is right. That's what they'd like to hear. The downside is if everything they were doing was right and they're not getting the results that they wanted, then technically that would mean that they can't ever get their results, right? So they're doing the right things, but the right things just don't work for them. Maybe they're special or defective, or there's just something unique about them beyond everyone else on the planet that none of the rules of nutrition seem to apply to them correctly. So they want to be told that they're right. Everything you're doing is correct. It just isn't leading to the right results. Therefore, you're screwed for life. You will never be happy. And some people, if they were told that, it seems like it would almost make them happy. So, some examples. I talked with a lady one time, and I talked with a lady is a funny way of saying it because she spent 40 minutes of an hour-long consultation telling me everything that she did. Anytime I'd try to chime in, she would cut me off instantly, or she would not reply to what I had said and just kept talking about whatever the hell she wanted to talk about. It was insanely frustrating 40 minutes, but I was doing it as a favor for someone, so I was trying not to lose my patience. But for 40 minutes, the person just told me what they were doing, and I had to just kind of cut them off. So, not in a very kind way. I said, for 40 minutes, we've talked about what you know, but what you know isn't working. Why don't we start talking about what I know? Because what I know works. They got grumpy, they got mad, they didn't like being told the things that they were doing wrong. And they never came back, they never followed through, and still to this day, they have never reached their goals, and it has been years and years and years. So they refuse to try any other way. Even if I was wrong, they still refuse to try anything else. They want to continue to do it their way, even though their way isn't working. Hasn't worked before, hasn't worked since, still won't work in the future. Nothing about the universe is going to magically change. Their way doesn't work, but they refuse to be told they're wrong. Okay. Had another example one time where a person refused to eat egg yolks. So they said egg yolks were unhealthy. It was horrible advice, and me as a nutritionist should never tell somebody to eat egg yolks. However, they had no freaking clue how many calories they were eating per day. It was significantly too few of calories. So this was a person who was wanting to lose weight. So they were actually under restricting their calories. They were eating so low in calories that their body refused to lose fat because they were actually almost like starving, trying to starve the fat off their body. So it was, in a sense, kind of shutting their body down. So we had a recent podcast where we actually talked about this concept of why eating less isn't good for fat loss, and it was podcast 426. Okay, and that was actually the title, Why Eating Less Isn't Good for Fat Loss. That's 426. So they were actually eating too few of calories to make progress. They had no clue how much protein they were having per day, and they had no clue how much was the right amount of protein. And they had no clue of meal timing. They weren't paying attention to eating their calories at the right times. So they were having too little of calories. They weren't having the right percentage of calories in the sources they should be coming from, and they weren't having them at the right time. They were doing damn near nothing correct with their food, But they were dead set that egg yolks were the problem. And that is such an incredible level of stupid that you can't help it. If someone wants to be that blind, that ignorant, that stubborn, there's nothing you could ever do to help them. And I want to say these kind of aggressive terms in this podcast because I want to wake up the listeners. If you're already listening to this, you're already probably a step above the people I'm giving the example to. Okay? Is you are listening to this because you have a genuine interest in learning. That maybe there will be something in this podcast that will help you towards your goals. Today's podcast wants to bring awareness to you that you might be the thing holding you back from your goals. You have to be willing to be wrong in order to eventually get the results that you want. Let's think about it. If you were right, if everything you were doing was correct, wouldn't you already have achieved your results? Or wouldn't you be closer to them this month than you were last month? And last month than you were the month before? So if you're not making progress, if you have not yet reached your goals, clearly what you're doing is wrong. That's pretty definitive. If it was right, it would work. Since it doesn't work, it must be wrong. But people overwhelmingly can't stand being told they're wrong. Don't be those people. Okay? And another person, they refused to eat over their caloric limit that they had arbitrarily set for themselves. So, for example, they said, well, I can't eat over 1,200 calories. Anytime I eat over 1,200 calories, I just gain weight. So I can't do that. But yet they were wanting to lose body fat. But yet they were eating so few of calories that no wonder anytime they tried to increase their calories, their body was going to try to save that food. So what we had the discussion on was that they had to slowly increase their caloric intake. At the same time, do resistance style training so they could burn up and use some of those calories. They had to understand that they had to allow their weight to go up a little bit in terms of water retention and muscle mass. They had to start building their body's metabolism rather than trying to strip their body apart. They had gotten to a stage of unhealthy, and their body would not move any further in fat loss because it felt like the fat that was remaining was necessary to protect itself for survival. So they were never, ever, ever going to be able to eat less because it wasn't sustainable for mood, for energy, for just general way of life. But they wouldn't allow themselves to eat more in order to rebuild their body to then eventually be able to reduce calories to get the rest of the fat off. So they had set an arbitrary caloric number, then refused to see the science behind why what they were doing kept them where they were. So they were sabotaging their own results by being closed-minded and saying, I will never do X, Y, and Z. They're going to continue to do the same thing they're doing. And guess what it got them? The same damn results it had already gotten them, which were not the result that they wanted. So, this is an important question you need to ask yourself. Okay? Do you want to be right? Or do you want results? If what you're doing worked, it would already have worked. It would have signs of progression. There would be some way of knowing that what you're doing was right. But if what you're doing isn't progressing, it isn't making improvements, or if making ridiculously slow improvements, you see everybody around you making faster improvements, and you're confused to what's going on. If what you're doing isn't working, you have to be open to doing something new. You have to be open to the fact that what you believe, the beliefs and the knowledge that you have today that created the approach you have today, that same approach that has not worked until today, up to this point, you have to be willing to accept that you are wrong and you may need to learn something new, maybe even contradictory to what you believe to be true. Because apparently what you believe to be true isn't working. Therefore, it's not true. Okay? Again, people need to ask themselves, do I want to be right or do I want results? I can't tell you the number of people I've met who actually would be happy if I told them they were right and that they were just defective, they were somehow special, and the right things were never going to work for them. They were never going to reach their goals. And they would actually be happy to be told that because they were told that they were right. They wouldn't even care as much that they were told they could never reach their dreams as much as they care about being told they're right. That is pathetic. And that is dangerous. Okay? If you are doing the right things nutritionally, they work. I've worked with over 1,000 people, well over 1,000. I just stopped counting at 1,000. I've been doing this for 17 years. I have a master's in nutrition. I taught at the university level for 7 years. I have seen enough people to know that no one is special. No one. The right things in nutrition simply work. Whatever you're doing nutritionally, and if it isn't working, it has nothing to do with you. Your body's not special. You're not defective. Even if you have PCOS, even if you have menopause, even if you're a hard gainer, even if you've always been fat, whatever bullshit you want to label yourself as for being special, you are not special. Nutrition works. Now, after I've pissed everybody off, so I have learned that even I am not special. I have made an insane amount of nutritional mistakes over the years because I started playing with my nutrition when I was 15 years old. I've been messing around with nutrition for 20 years, okay? And I have formal educational degrees on this stuff. So I have 20 years of real-world personal experience of my own journey. I have 17 years experience working with other people. I have a health and phys ed degree. I have a master's in nutrition. I taught at the university level. Okay. So I have real world experience. I have experience with others. I have formal education. All of that stuff tells me that you're not special. I'm not special. Nutrition just works. You simply don't have it right yet if you're not getting the results you want. So, when I was younger, I used to think that I was special, and compared to the things in the advice that I would give my clients, I would always over-exercise and I would under-eat compared to them. I would always do more exercise than I would ever recommend to somebody else on a caloric amount that was way under than what I would ever recommend to anybody else. I somehow thought that I had to be a martyr for my goal. I had to be miserable to be happy. And yes, that sounds stupid, but you do it too. So don't be laughing at me just yet. Okay? So I thought that I had to almost punish myself into fat loss rather than using it as a health building process. I had to be miserable. It had to be punishment. Everything had to be black and white rules, on or off, right or wrong. There was no gray. Everything was aggressive. And that's what I thought I needed to do because I was special. My body was stubborn. I could never get lean. Me. Being special. Well, I found out that I am not special. I need the same type of exercise that I recommend to all my clients. I need the same caloric amounts that I recommend to all my clients. Now, are there some variable differences? Yes. If someone's lactose intolerant, you're going to avoid some dairy, okay? If somebody has celiac disease, you're going to avoid gluten. You know, there are individual differences. But all they do is you have to find your way of applying the same damn rules that everybody else applies. You can't avoid a rule. You're not so special that some rule needs to be doubled or tripled because you're defective, okay? And you sure as shit don't get to skip rules. So in podcast number 41, Nutrition, Diet Right, What Matters Most. That's the title, okay? 41, Diet Right, What Matters Most. We talk about the 5 components of a healthy diet, whether it's to lose fat, whether it's for performance, for maximum aesthetics, or whether you're trying to actually gain weight. The components of importance are number one, calories. By far most important, more important than anything else, whether something's organic or not, whether you eat white bread or wheat bread, white rice or brown rice, none of that shit matters if you don't have your calories correct. Calories is number one. Protein amount is number two. Meal timing, so when you're having your calories compared to what time of the day and your activity level, that's number three. Number four is your macronutrient quality. That's when it matters, if something is white or wheat, organic or not. Okay? And number five is like supplements and all the other bullshit that doesn't really matter that much. So, if you're thinking about what you're doing nutritionally and you don't have your calories accounted for, you're wrong. Whatever the hell you're focusing on you think is so important, it is not. Calories is most important. Okay? Once you have calories addressed, you have to know if you're having the right amount of protein and the right types for you. If you don't know that, whatever you're focusing on is wrong. The third most important thing is meal timing. When you're eating what you're eating. So if you don't know your calories yet, figure that out. If you don't know your protein yet, figure that out. If you don't pay attention to meal timing, when you eat compared to what your activity levels are of the day, okay, figure that out. Number four, the fourth most important thing is whether something's white or wheat, organic or not, okay? Whether someone's having this type of carbohydrate or that type of carbohydrate. Whether having this type of fat or that type of fat. That only matters if you've already accounted for calories, protein, and meal timing. So the lady who was so damn worried about egg yolks, but didn't know anything else about her diet, that is ridiculous. Now, what if she came into the conversation not knowing that she needed to know those things? Well then, hey, with the knowledge that she had, she was doing the best she could. I understand that, and I don't mean to be bashing that part of it. But the part I do have a problem with is once they're told what are the right things, and they say, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing. How stupid is that? If what you've been doing to this point has not worked to this point, and yet you're going to continue to do it, even when presented why it isn't working. That is pretty ridiculous. So that's what I want you to avoid. I want you to keep an open mind. It's okay if you're talking with a nutritionist or if you're looking at nutritional information resources to say, well, is what I'm doing already wrong? Yes or no? And that's okay. You can find out if what you're doing is right, but recognize that it might be only part of the puzzle. There might be more right parts to add to your puzzle to get it working, to get it moving forward, to get it progressing. Okay? You have to be open to the fact that you're making mistakes. And you have to actively seek out and want to find what those mistakes are. Okay? You have to, again, ask yourself, do you want to be right or do you want results? And again, I can't tell you how sad it is how many people simply just want to be right, even if it means they're going to be miserable. Oh, I can never be lean because I have PCOS. I'm always going to be miserable now. No. You absolutely do not have to be overweight because you have PCOS. I've helped women with PCOS get six-pack abs and step onto an aesthetic stage. Did they maybe have to be more disciplined with their diet than what they had been before? Hell yes, of course. Who the hell is ever going to get six-pack abs and step on a stage without increasing the discipline of their diet? No one on the planet gets to do that. Well, there are a couple of special people out there who are born with six-pack abs, okay? But I'm talking about the people who, if they have to lose body fat, you just don't magically lose body fat unless you change your effort towards it. So if you have body fat to take off, you have to have more discipline in your nutrition approach. Just because you have PCOS does not mean you can't make progress. It means you have to do what people with PCOS would have to do to make progress. That might mean you have to pare all carbohydrate sources with protein sources. Okay? It might mean that you have to focus more on fats than carbohydrates. Most people I meet with PCOS, they simply just overeat their calories and they eat at the wrong times. They eat more than they think they do. And they deem themselves to be too busy during the day and they overeat at night. And they eat stupid shit that they shouldn't eat, that they already know it. So most people I meet who have PCOS who can't lose weight, it has nothing to do with PCOS. They're making the same common mistakes that every other person makes on the planet. When I'm busy, I don't eat. When I'm not busy, I overeat. I don't pay attention to how many calories are in things, and I want to have fun meals here and there regardless of whether I earn them, and I don't actively participate in weight resistance training to the degree in which I would need to eat what I want to eat. It's the same mistakes everyone makes. If you have menopause, okay, same damn mistakes. You're under eating during the day, you're overeating at night, you're not matching your meal timing to your activity levels, you're eating out, you're doing a bunch of stupid shit nutritionally that makes you overweight. And it has nothing to do with having menopause. Whether you had menopause or not, you'd be overweight because the mistakes you're making have nothing to do with menopause. You're not special. If you're a hard gainer, okay, oh, I can never seem to gain weight, I'm always thin, I can never seem to put on muscle. It's because you eat one or two large, stupid-ass meals a day. You don't pay attention to the rest of your day. You don't eat when you're busy. You try to overeat in big, chunky meals. Maybe say you eat nothing all day. You then kill it in the gym for 2 hours and have a pizza when you go home. That's stupid. That's absolutely stupid. You haven't paid attention to meal timing. You're not paying attention to your calories. You're not paying attention to being consistent from day to day. You're just putting in flashes of effort randomly whenever they're most convenient for you. No shit, that's not working. Okay? If you've always been fat, and that's just the way I'm made, I've never been thin my whole life, I can never lose weight. Chances are you've had the same nutritional behaviors since the day you realized you were fat. And you refuse to change your behaviors. You're still deep frying everything in butter. You're still drinking soda and sweet tea. You're still under eating during the day and overeating at night. You're using social events as excuses to eat whatever stupid shit you want to eat. You're blaming everyone, everything else, rather than taking the responsibility for your actions. So again, would you rather just be told that what you're doing is right, but it's never going to work for you because you're somehow special? You're never going to reach your goals. You're always going to be miserable. But you're right. Are you okay with that? Are you more interested in being right than you are in getting results? This is a very serious question to ask ourselves, because overwhelmingly I see people have this mindset. They think they're special, okay? And everything they're doing is right. It just doesn't work for them because they're special. And instead of being open-minded to finding out what they believe to be right, that might not be right, in what areas could they be wrong, instead of finding out in what ways they could be wrong, they'd rather be right and miserable. It's pretty sad. So which category are you? Are you willing to be told what you're doing wrong so you can eventually get it right and reach your goals and dreams? Or do you just want to put your foot in the ground, plant your flag where you are and say, I'm right. I know what I'm doing is right. I don't need to listen to you. Okay, fine. Stay miserable. Never reach your goals. Congratulations. You win. Is that the battle you want to win? Is that victory? I don't want that. So, what can you do today? What can you do this week to set the record straight, get things right, and get things moving forward? Do you have to pay $1 bajillion for a nutritionist? No. We've given you, in these podcasts, the right things to learn and how to write your own damn nutrition plan. You don't need me. Okay? You need, like, the old me who made these podcasts. But you don't need me for this. Okay? You can do it on your own if you want to. It's all right here. Podcast 41 tells you what matters most in diets. Okay? Podcast 153, the thing that matters the most is calories. Podcast 153 tells you how to find out what's the right amount of calories you should be eating. Okay? The second most important thing is protein. Podcast 33 tells you how much protein you should be eating. Third most important thing is meal timing. Okay? And what's related to that is meal frequency, so how many meals you would need. Well, podcast 249 talks about meal timing. Podcast 329 talks about meal frequency and the effects it has on diets and the moods and the way you feel. Okay? Then we have macronutrient quality is number 4. Well, we have the podcast for that. We have podcast 21 about carbs, podcast 29 about fats, and we have podcast 216 about proteins. And then in podcast 45, we tell you how to create a nutrition plan. All of these podcasts will be on the reference page, like for your download, where you're going to download this podcast, where it has a description of this podcast. They'll be included. Those podcasts add up to about 4 hours. If you spend 4 hours this next week, you can learn how to properly eat for the next 40 freaking years of your life or more. Will you spend 4 hours to find out how to then be happy for the next 40 years? It's sad how many people won't. They'll spend more than 4 hours this week scrolling on their homepage on Facebook before they'll spend the 4 hours to learn what they should learn nutritionally, to take control of their physical, emotional, mental health for the rest of their life. Will you spend 4 hours to take control of your nutrition? Or will you turn a blind eye and keep doing the stupid shit you're doing now that ain't working? Do you just want to be right? Or do you want results? That's the question you got to ask yourself. Okay? Go listen to those podcasts if you want results. Write down the information, how it pertains to you. Put it all together in podcast 45 and create your own nutrition plan. If you have a question in this process, email us at brutalironjim@gmail.com. I'll help you out. Okay? I want you, if you listen to this podcast, I truly care about you because I appreciate you guys spending the time listening to these podcasts. I do. I truly appreciate it. But I also want to show you some tough love, okay? I love that you're here, but I want to be some toughness on you and wake you up. Wake you up to the fact that if what you're doing now isn't working, it's not going to continue. Like, it's not going to magically turn. It's not going to magically change. It's not going to magically work next week, next month, next year. If it isn't working today, it isn't going to work tomorrow. Fix it. Do you want to be right? Or do you want results? Email us at brutalironjim@gmail.com with anything you need. Okay? If you like the podcast, please share it with family and friends. The more people we help, the happier the world will be. Also, if you like this information, you can find more from us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Brutal Iron Gym. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. The podcast is for you, so we want to know what you want to learn about. And you can tell us at our email at brutalironjim@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful. And thank you for listening. And thank you for watching.